Hi, welcome to another episode of the Hot Ball with me, Eamon, courtesy of AIG and Dublin GEA. On this episode, we're talking to a former Ryder Cup captain, all-round golf legend, and Ballyboden and Dublin GEA fan and player, Paul McGinley. In this episode, we talk about everything from leadership, culture, discipline, pressure moments, how to connect with people emotionally. I really enjoyed it, got a lot out of it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Here we go. Well, Paul, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on to the Hot Ball with Dublin GEA and AIG. It's great to have you involved in this. You know, we've kind of expanded the program out now, and great to push place with some, obviously, players of the GEA, but people who have an interest in Dublin GEA as well, which I know you do. But I want to go back again, reeling in the years a bit about your time in GEA and how you got involved in it. Your dad, Mick, was a big influence for you, was he?
Yeah, Dad played with Donegal and born and raised. My mum and dad are both Donegal. They moved down to Dublin before I was born. I was born here, the oldest of five. And like I'm sure you, Eamon, and everybody else in Ireland, they grew up in a very Catholic Irish background. Went to the local Christian Brothers school. Boys National School first, Christian Brothers School, played football with them. Had a lot of success, actually, particularly hurling in the national school. A fella called Fitton Walsh was a teacher there who played with Laois, and we got to Croke Park every year, which was great, winning most of the times. And then moving on to Ballyboden, we had a good team there too. Growing up through the years in Ballyboden from, I guess, under 12 right through, and I played a couple of senior practice matches, so all the way through every age group from there. And also Cloister Aina, Christian Brothers School that I went to too. Success, hurling and football there. Both. I was better at Gaelic than I was at hurling. I played a bit of soccer too, and I wasn't particularly good at the soccer. I didn't really enjoy it, not like I did the GAA, that's for sure.
No, well, like the GEA, I was talking to Brian Steins, and he was telling me that you played with his brother Jim as well for Ballyboden. Yeah. Did you play many games with him, or?
Yeah, all through the age groups. We had a really good team. You know, if you look back through the history books, we were the best team in Dublin around the early 80s when we were all in the underage group through minor, through 21s. And Jim was midfield. I was left half forward, and that's kind of been a little small fella. My job was to pick up the scraps from Jim in midfield. He'd be double marked, you see, big tall Jim. Noel Quinn was from that era as well too. He played up the road from Drimna Castle. That was one of our local derbies. So it's great, you know. I stayed in touch with Quinny still right to now, and it was the same with Jim. You know, every time I used to play golf down Australian Open or whatever I was playing in, or every time I was in Melbourne, I always look him up and we'd hook up, or he'd come to the golf or whatever, and we stayed in touch that way. And it was really sad, obviously, what happened. His dad Brian was the coach of the team with a fella called Jimmy Fitzpatrick. They were the two coaches. And then Brian Jr. was a couple of years behind us. So they were great times. Listen, I look back with very, very fond memories. I had a brilliant childhood. And every time I come back to Ireland now, you know, I always make a visit up around Furhouse, I was up there actually the other day, and you know, bringing back old memories. It's great. I had a great time.
Yeah, like you've definitely kept in that connection with the GEA. And I know even speaking to Kieran Whelan over the years, which are your partnership with Allianz as well, like, you know, that love for the GEA, did that ever leave you? Like, were you ever on tour and going, I need to get home and watch the Sunday game? Was that ever part of your mindset?
Well, when I was on tour, we didn't have Zoom and didn't have all the internet facilities that we have nowadays. You know, it was only at the last kind of decade or so that that's kind of evolved, and I've been able to watch the GEA go and all those kind of stuff around the world, and I still do it. So yeah, I mean, I always followed it when I was on tour. Never missed anything what was going on, and yeah, you know, I have a great interest in it. To be honest, it's my favorite sport. If you ask me, golf or
really?
GAA, it's on the TV. Which one are you going to watch? To be honest, oh yeah, if there's a Gaelic match on, a good Gaelic match on now, you know, championship match or a league final or semi-final or something, and there's golf on, there's only one thing I'm watching. And often when I'm working with Sky now, when we in the trailer, we've got this luxurious trailer when we're in America. And so there's a commentary booth at the end of it, and then there's like what they call a green room, you know, for what they call a talent. So myself or Butch Harmon or Monty when he was working with us, or Rich Beam or whoever. So we'd have this big TV, so we come out of commentary and be watching the big TV, you know, following the golf, so that, you know, when our commentary turn, we go back in. But I'd always have the iPad underneath it with the GAA on, so I was kind of watching the two screens at the same time and also educating the lads about a real sport.
Yeah, because I've talked to Shane Lowry a few times, and I know he'd be in the same mindset as you of like he wants to go home and watch it, and obviously the links with Ireland and his passion for it has never wavered at all, and that seems to be the same with you. Like even when I was talking to a few lads prior to this, I said Brian Steins, Kieran Whelan, like they all just said that you have a natural love for the game that comes across. Like even when you speak to someone like Michal Murray-Hertig, who can just rattle off dates, names, off the drop of a hat. Like you're pretty similar in terms of you've kept them connections over the years. You've never kind of moved away from it. When you go back to your days of playing, were you like that close to a lot of players in terms, like I know you were close to Jim and all that kind of stuff, but when you started to see other players, the likes of Kevin Moore and all these, were you ever in contact with them about trying to take learnings from GEA, from other sports, when you started to see other players grow and develop?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kevin Moran was my hero very much growing up, and I got to know Kevin very well, still do. And sometimes we go on holidays together now. He's great crack, great fun, and a smart guy, obviously, and very good in business. And that transition that he's done from GAA into soccer and then soccer into business has been, as good as anybody's done. A great crack, great fun. And his brother, actually, Ray, has done a few surgeries on my knee, a bit like you, I'm sure, of most GAA people.
Yeah.
Ray has had the scalpel that most of us. I've had. That's what kind of stopped me playing GAA. Is I broke my kneecap when I was 19, and the end of me playing GAA, and I've had 9 surgeries on it since. But yeah, going back to it, of course, I see all the guys, and a lot of learnings from the GAA, and certainly when I was Ryder Cup captain, there was a lot of ideas that I brought from the GAA into the team room in Gleneagles, and the players didn't need to know about it or what it was aware of, and most of it was what I call engagement of the heart. You grow up in your county, and whatever that be in Ireland, and you want to play for the local village or the local town. You go through the age groups, and then you escalate into their senior team and minor team and senior team, and then you hopefully wear the county jersey and represent them in Croke Park. You're representing the town, the people, the place that you're from, and it's a very, very powerful connection. And it's certainly something that I tried to bring into my Ryder Cup captaincy, or in my role as captain was Sergio Garcia, for example. You're not just there representing a faceless blue flag of Europe. You're representing Spain, your town, your village, the people that you're from, and to the point of putting photographs in their rooms, in their bedrooms and stuff like that, of their hometown and their home village. So you're really trying to connect with the heart, because it's one thing getting into people's heads, whether it be in business or sport. It's one thing getting into their heads, but the real magic happens when you engage their heart and get them really, really engaged for reasons that are very poignant to them, and very emotional to them, and that's what I try to do.
Did you put pictures into the rooms of their village and towns?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I made them. Yeah, and the point would be, you're not representing this faceless blue flag. Forget about that. Martin Keimer, I remember, from Germany. Germany had won when I was captain in 2014. Germany had won the World Cup soccer that year. And Martin is a quiet, very reserved, in some ways, German guy, nice guy, but very different personality than, say, a Neil Poulter or Lee Westwood, and that German in English, I always have a bit of a trouble bonding, and so there was a pulling him aside well in advance of this as a Ryder Cup and saying, look, Martin, you're not just there red flag or Ian Poulter or Lee Westwood or any other player's teammate. You're there as an individual first, representing Germany, town, the village, the place that you're from, because everybody from Germany who's going to tune in to watch this Ryder Cup, yes, they want to see Europe doing well, but the first question is, how's Keimer doing? So every time you're over a putt, every time you're over a shot, just remember, those people at home, that's who you're representing. And, it's a very much a GA philosophy. Another little thing would have been the colours. Every day I had a colour, but there was a theme to what the colours were. They weren't just these, that goes well with that colour, because you designed the clothes as, you don't design the clothes, but you design the colours. You choose the colours as the captain. And, so every day I had a different theme. And again, that was engaged something with the heart. Like one day we wore colours of Scotland because we were representing there. We were playing in Scotland. Another day we wore the colours of Sevi Ballesteros, which is always navy and white, you know. And then I had a home and an away theme at the weekend, which was our away strip, which was very much yellow of Europe, and then blue as a smaller colour, and then reversed that into the home strip on the Sunday, where it was very much dominant in blue. So all of those things were ideas that communicated to the players, and it was just to give a little narrative and tune them into what was really important. And I think, and it's a bit like, again, that comes from wearing the county colours and the county jersey.
I can't believe the level of detail you went into. It's amazing to hear, like, that's how you zone in to connect with people, because, you know, when I was interviewing Coach Cabinet, he had it as earned belief. So, like, you can't just build trust overnight. It takes time, but you have to connect with people emotionally to fully understand them and engage with them. You seem to really do that, and I'll get into the Alex Ferguson piece in a minute, because I know that was a big part of it. But in terms of your business side of stuff, is it London Business School you were involved in as a fellowship?
Yeah.
Does that
that kind of emanated? Yeah, that kind of emanated out of the captaincy. You know, it obviously went well, and I ended up doing a lot of public speaking and talks and stuff like that. And they had seen me, and they invited me into the school, and they wanted to do a case study to present to their students on leadership and use what we did in Glen Eagles. And so I did a case study with them and presented that to the students. And kind of what emanated out of that was they made me an executive fellow, which is kind of like an honorary lecturer or an honorary student of the or honorary lecturer of London Business School, one of the top business schools in the world. And I was the only and first ever sports person they ever did that too, because they don't have a sporting pedigree, and they're obviously a business school. So I'm still there, and I've just written a book with them on leadership as well, kind of combining principles that I believed in and what I've experienced in sport, and the head of leadership has worked with me on that in business. We kind of married the two together and created a book called Landscape of Success.
Wow!
It's been a great relationship. And what am I there now? nearly 6 years, and every year I go in and present the case study. And it's funny, you know, going back to the GAA again, when I go in, and remember, this is very much an international school, so you'll have Chinese, you'll have Indians. I mean, I'd say only 10% will be British or Irish that will be in there, if that even. You know, most of it is it's like a really crash course, and it's generally for men or women who are kind of maybe graduating to take over the family business, which could be huge, or they're graduating, finishing school, having come out of university, or somebody who's kind of changing occupations and want to re-educate themselves with modern ways of leadership. So you'd have about 100, 150 in each class. It's called a Sloan. Course. It's a crash course of about 6 to 9 months. And I would come in and they would have the case study, and they'd kind of the case study for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they would study the case study, and then the lecturer will come in and present the case study, and they would ask questions about it, and they'd be giving him insights to it. And all the time I'd be sitting at the back of the class. They wouldn't know that I was there. And then at the end, he'd invite me down, and then I would do a Q&A for an hour and a half. But what was so brilliant is, as I say, there's only 10%, if that, are British or Irish. And it's amazing to hear the Indians, the Chinese, men and women, talking about the county colours, talking about the GAA. It's just incredible, something that they knew nothing about. So in my own little small way, I'm kind of spreading the word of the GAA.
Oh, brilliant. When's the book out?
The book is out. Well, I have it. Yeah, I haven't published it. Well, I've published it. I've self-published it. I didn't do it. It's not done really for commercial reasons. It was done to kind of condense all my learnings. But yeah, I have several. If anybody wants one, we can arrange it. Just contact me through Twitter. Probably be the best thing. Just send me a message, a direct message through Twitter, and I can arrange for it to be sent. But yeah, there's a lot of GAA pictures in there, a lot of principles. There's 18. I did it 18 as in 18 holes. There's 18 principles on leadership. Yeah, it's a marrying between business, leadership in business, and leadership in sport, and certainly through the eyes of the Ryder Cup in particular that I was involved in.
Well, I'm actually doing my master's part-time in UCD Smurfit Business School, and I like naturally read leadership books and culture books, and reading stuff about the All Blacks now, about
Yeah,
the Clive Woodward and obviously Alex Ferguson. So I definitely love to reference a few of your points
sure.
and your principles in my assignments. But I know you're a big fan of Alex Ferguson, and he obviously played a part in the Ryder Cup as well when he came in to speak with the lads. Did you just kind of give him free rein to, and like I know he talked about the geese flying overhead, and he has the picture of the lad sitting on the bar in his dressing room. And I've listened to and watched a few different interviews that he's done. Did you just give him free rein to talk about whatever he wanted, or did you have points that you wanted him to kind of get across to the lads?
Well, that's what I learned most from him, Eamon, more than anything else was. So didn't it just take a little time to go through the relationship with him? I played with him about 10 years previously in the JP McManus Pro-Am down in Limerick, but I hadn't met him over 10 years. And he just retired from Man United, and I became Ryder Cup captain around that time. And there was a number of challenges that I felt I needed help with. In terms of leadership, I'd played in 3 Ryder Cups. I'd been a vice captain on 2. I'd been a Sevi Trophy captain on 2. We'd won everything I'd been involved in. I was very lucky to have great teammates and great learning experiences. I played under or captained everybody from Faldo to Sevi to Monty to Rory. I mean, a who's who, a Lazabal, wherever you want to go, Ian Wisdom, wherever you want to go in the history of great history of European golf in the last 25 years. I'd either been in a team room with them one way or other, either playing under them or captain. So I had a lot of information. I was that soldier. I haven't done 3 Ryder Cups, but I was never, for example, I'll just give you one of the things. I was never a superstar in the team. I was always kind of 6 to 12 in the team, a guy who played 3 matches out of 5. Yeah, obviously an important member of the team, but I was never the superstar status, like I say, a Rory would have been. The questions that I wanted to get some insights on were questions like, how do you deal with superstars? How do you deal with superstars when you're captaining them? I was a soldier of 6 to 12 or kind of even 3 to 12, but the top 3 players in the team, what kind of pressures do they feel? How do you deal with them? How do you position them in the media? So those kind of questions I I wanted to get more information on. So I looked around, I thought, well, who would be the person who could help me, kind of mentor me on this? And Ferguson was the one who came to mind. So I got his phone number or his email rather, and I contacted him, and so he rang me back and he said, look, he says, I'm really busy. I just, a lot of teams are looking for me and things. Look, he says, I like golf, but, I don't think I'm going to have time for this. I'm really busy. I've just retired. I don't want to be jumping back in again. And I said, look, let's can I have lunch with you? So he said, yeah. He said, but you're going to have to come up to Manchester. So I said, okay, no problem. So we arranged a date and I went up to Manchester. Went into this little small kind of mom and pop, you'd have to say, hotel in a place called Alderley Edge. Nice kind of three-star hotel, I'd say, on the edge of Manchester. Alderley Edge is where he lives, and so we met him there, and he had this little corner table down the back, and he says, oh, this is where I've done all the years. I use this as my main meeting room. Sometimes I meet the players here, a certain player if I want to speak to him and have lunch, or sometimes I'll meet an agent or a player I'm trying to sign. So he said, there's great history in this little place here. So we were having lunch, and we're having a great lunch, and he opened up a bottle of wine, like all the famous stories about him liking a glass of wine is absolutely true. He's got his own cellar downstairs. The owner brings up his own wine thing. So we were having a great lunch, and obviously I was careful. I wasn't really drinking because I had loads of questions. I had my notes all out and I wanted to ask him. So kind of that's how it emanated. We got on really well, and when I started explaining to him the different ideas that I had and things, questions that I had, he was giving me the feedback. I was taking down notes and all of those things, and kind of one thing led to another. And he said, look, he says, I like where you're going here. I like the way you're approaching this. He said, if you want to meet again in the next couple of years, when you're captain, there's no problem. Come on up again. We can do it again. And kind of emanated from there. So when it came after meeting him, I think I met him 3 times over the 2 years, as well as a couple of phone calls and a couple of emails. And as it got closer to Gleneagles, about 6 months before it, I asked him, I said, look, I'd love you to come. And we normally have a guest speaker on the Tuesday night that will come in and speak to the players. I'd be really honored if you would be that guy. It's in Scotland. There's a good connection there. All the players love love Man United. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them, they all love soccer. And I said, you know, the caddies as well. The caddies are really important. And if you were to go in and you know, give a talk to the caddies, because they've got their own separate room next door to the players, you know, it'd be great to go in and you just appear. And he said, look, he says, I'll do it, but I don't want any media. You don't have to tell anybody, not even the players. Nobody's to know, because I don't want everybody asking the next 6 months about the Ryder Cup. And also he said, it'll put a lot of pressure on you. And he said, the second thing is, I want you to go away and I want you to write an email. I want you to give it a lot of thought. And I want you to write an email, and I want you to write down 6 biggest challenges that you face as a team to win the Ryder Cup. You tell me what those 6 are, because there's no point in me coming in and just talking off piece about what I want to talk about, because I want to know what your challenges are. So if you tell me exactly what those challenges are, I'll prepare something and I'll go in without referencing them, and I'll just talk about those 6 things and leave them hanging in the air. So as you come in later in the week for your team meetings, you can then reference what Alex Ferguson said at the start. So it'll just empower your word and give you a little bit more, give the players a little bit more layer on the challenges that you're facing. So it was all very planned and all very focused, and it was certainly along those lines of those 6 principles, and that's really what it was. And it was very simple. He was incredibly humble, and he also gave me a lot of confidence. That was what was really interesting about him. Was, you know, he'd say something like, you know, I'd say, tell me, what do you think of this, and how do you think I should handle this? And his always answer would be, well, what do you think? What's your instinct telling you? And I said, well, you know, I'm kind of thinking about if I do this and I say that, or I do this. He says, I love that. That's brilliant. That's exactly what you should do. I'll tell you why. And then he would give me an example of his own kind of stuff. So what he was doing was just giving me the information, but he was also empowering me and also giving me a lot of confidence. So in a lot of ways, you know, he's a strong psychologist in a lot of ways. He was playing me as well as giving me the information. And that was something I was very appreciative of.
That's coaching 101, isn't it? Like, you know, trying to empower and get you to realize the answer for yourself, which is great that you kind of had that relationship with him, because, you know, when I look at leaders and I read a lot about different people and how they inspire, storytelling plays a massive part in that, and how being able to tell a story. So it sounds like he was able to tell the story of his experience and how he got there, and then it just led you into, okay, well, these are the 6 things that I know. Now I have to just layer what he said on top of it, which is a great way to do it, because if you're trying to just hammer a message, it's hard to get it to resonate with people if you're just kind of enforcing it without any background or without any story to tell on it. So I would have loved to have been in that dressing room, because like even stuff, I'd watched a few interviews with him on Harvard on Harvard Business Post and Business Review. I'd say you know, you can't come out of a meeting with him without having that sense of energy, that buzz, that excitement, just to go out and kind of start playing. So there's definitely
we did I got him down to London Business School as well too, and 2 of us did a talk together in London Business School to the students and the faculty there. So that's on YouTube as well too, if you get a chance to have a look at it. Anybody wants to look at it, it's about half an hour long or 40 minutes long, and he's great. I must say, I really I learned a huge amount from him, and he's easy company. You know, he's great company.
But you've kind of evolved this again, because, like, as I said, like, I'm a big fan of you, and in terms of your leadership and the principles and the culture that you created in that team. And I've been lucky enough to go to a few talks that you were at, and one was with the Irish Open. You're doing a pre-event with AP McCoy. Now, AP was telling a few stories about his career and his love for golf and how he got into it. But when you were talking about like different challenges that you face in the racing game, and one of them is stats. Well, it was like you were talking about, like, you could get stats on everything. You could get different stats for different players, and you could nearly get all too consumed and bogged down and just reading the stats and not having that emotional connection, because you're just looking at everything on a piece of paper. Like, the role of stats has become so big in GAA. Like, I'll give you an example. From a club point of view, we now have meeting rooms in the clubhouse that are just like, you know, for video analysis. We have huddle on our phones. You know, we're getting matches sent to us, training sessions. It's nearly become, from a club point of view, all too consuming. So I imagine in a professional setup, it's even more amplified.
Yeah, it was. The stats thing in golf, and it's become a big part of the Ryder Cup now. You look at what we did 2 years ago in France, where we absolutely blitzed the Americans, and we did that pretty much statistically. It's the statisticians had a huge role to play in the picking of the team, and also the setup of the golf course. And basically, we threw the Americans. They had no idea how to play a golf course that was very narrow with heavy rough. And a lot of the algorithms that they put in place put the pairings together. And Thomas Bjorn, the captain, kind of oversaw all that. So going back to my captaincy, which was in 2014. So I was a vice captain to Monty in 2010 and Lazabal in 2012. And in those two, we didn't have a stats team then. I was the statistician as one of the vice captains. I was the guy that came along and did all the research and had, our best 10 putters ranked 1 to 10 or 1 to 12. Our best drivers in terms of accuracy, 1 to 12, our biggest hitters, and the strengths and weaknesses of every player, and had them in a kind of a file that I would put that on the table when we were choosing the pairings, or Monty or Lazabal were choosing the pairings. And so it was very raw, it was very basic. But when I became captain at the end of beginning of 2013, the first thing I did was employ a full-time statistics team. And that was the first time it had ever been used by either America or Europe in the Ryder Cup. I used a company called strokeaverage.com, and why I chose them was they already ensconced in golf. They were starting to do a lot of statistics for players, Rory being one of them. They were very familiar with the players' games. And I wasn't too obsessed about the players. What I did was I reverse engineered it. And my question to them was, okay, guys, here's what I want you to do first and foremost before we do anything, is that we've had 10 tournaments played in Glen Eagles in the Johnny Walker in the last 10 years. I want you to go into the winners and the performers in those 10 events. And I want you to give me the correlations. And I don't want 50 correlations. I want 4 or 5 correlations on one page in big headlines. That's all I want. I don't want anything else. Show me the correlations on this golf course. What's the key to unlocking this golf course? Because every golf course has got a different key to unlock it. If you go to Augusta National, it's very much about the second golf course. Second shot to really play that. There's a huge correlation between the best iron player, the guy who hits his irons the best that week, and the guy who wins. If you go to the Open Championship, it's very much about ball control. You've got to play it from the fairway, and you've got to be able to move the ball left to right, up and down because of the winds in the links golf course. So every golf course has got different keys. So I wanted to find out from Glen Eagles, from these guys, trawl through the stats, show me the correlations, because they the stats for all the winners and all the people who played the previous 10 years. So, for example, you take that, and one of the things that came out very clear was the performance on the par fives. And that's not always the case in every golf course, but in this one it was. So you got to really hit the par fives. So the guy who generally played the par fives the best was the guy that won the tournament, or if he didn't, he was in the top 3. So that was one of the stats. Second was big hitting, was another one that was really close. It wasn't a short hitters, little pokey golf course. You had to be powerful, you had to be big around there. So I take that forward again too, going down to, say, my picks, for example. Luke Donald, who's a short straight hitter, and Lee Westwood, who's a pretty powerful hitter. I had to choose between those two, and I went with the powerful one, Lee Westwood, because the stats were telling me that you need to be powerful to play around this golf course, and Lee certainly had more power than Luke did, even though the form was quite similar. So I was picking horses for courses, which I'm a great believer in. And then rolling on a little bit more into more detail, if you look at all the pairings that I put in place for the foursomes, which is the ultimate shot, I had a big hitter and a shorter hitter in every group. And the idea was that, we talked about the 4 par 5s being really key. There was 4 par 5s in the golf course and also a drivable par 4. Now, here was the interesting thing. 4 of those 5 were even numbers, right? So what I did was, when I had a shorter hitter and a bigger hitter, the big hitter would drive in even numbers. So when I'm sitting down with Graham McDowell, for example, and trying to talk him into playing with Victor Dubuisson, which he didn't want to do initially, I had to show him the stats, and I said, look, the key to unlocking this golf course, G-Mac, is you've got to attack the par 5s. Now, you're one of the shorter hitters in the team, but you bring a lot of other assets. But what I want to do is I want to pair you with Dubuisson, because first of all, I need somebody really mature on the shoulder. This guy is kind of left field, wild as a March hare. But I need somebody, and I feel you're, probably our most mature person as a person on the golf course as well as off it. And I know you can contain him. And the second thing is, he's a big hitter and you're not. So here's what I want you to pair together. When you're playing strategically, I want him to be the driver on the even numbers, because here's the example. I took out the yardage book and showed him your average drive on the second hole of par 5. He can't get home in 2 because it's over water from 280 yards. Because he's 30 yards longer than you, you're only be going in from 250 yards and you can't get home. So that's all of a sudden he's gone, oh, okay, that works. Yeah. And is there that much of a correlation? Yeah, there's a massive correlation between playing the par 5 as well. So we attacked the par 5s and that drivable par 4. Come to the drivable par 4, there was a carry of 280 yards over the cross bunkers, and then it would roll onto the green. So obviously Graham couldn't carry that. So if he was playing that hole, he'd have to lay back and Victor would have a 100-yard shot in. Whereas if Victor was playing, he was able to carry it and get it around the green. So he'd either be on the green or he'd be chipping. So that's kind of where it is. So it was reverse engineered from the golf course back into the players.
As you were talking there, I was kind of just thinking the horses for courses analogy of Dublin GAA. Like if you think of the likes of Owen O'Gara over the last few years, when Dublin have come up against big physical full back lines, that's when you'd see the likes of Owen coming in, and even like to have someone as mature as G Mac to say, right, your game is now changing. Like, you're going to have to sacrifice a certain element of your game to benefit the team. I mean, I think of the likes of Kev Mack, who I'm sure would rather start every game, but he knows his role and knows how to go into the team and bring that energy in the last 10, 15, 20 minutes. That's a selfless act, and I have more affirmation for people like that who know what they bring to a team and are willing to make the sacrifice for the greater good. Yeah, it sounds like you kind of really honed in on that to get the best out of people in their roles.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the I'm kind of the idea writing a second book, and if I do, it would be along the lines of the individual before the team. In this modern world, I know this is a little bit of left field. I just need to explain it a bit. Everybody talks about team. Whether it's business, it's all about the team. Whether it's GAA, it's all about the team. Ryder Cup, it's all about the team. It's all about the team. Everything. All we hear is team. It's team effort. Now, I'll challenge that. For me, it's about the individual first, and what can you contribute to the team, and it's about individually managing each of the players, and putting their role in and making it really clear as to what their role is within the team before it goes to the team. So, for example, my team meetings were no longer than 10 minutes every night. They were at 9 o'clock, and they were 9 o'clock to 9:15 latest. But all my management was done, not just then, but in the months and years leading up to the Ryder Cup, was done on a one-to-one basis. Because, it's about firing up that guy, going back to the principle again of the GAA, Sergio Garcia, and making it all about Spain for him, and, making it about his career and making it about why it's important, or what role he's going to play. I mean, let's go a little bit more into Graham. Let's go back to that partnership again with Victor. It's a big part of the case study, and it's actually quite interesting because when I set Graham down, I said, Graham, I've got good news and bad news. And the good news is, the bad news, first of all, is that I want you to play with Victor. And of course, he's resisting this. I don't want to play with Victor. I've won the US Open. I've been a big star in Ryder Cups. I've whole win and pot. I want to play 5 matches. Everybody wants to play 5 matches, Graham. A little bit like we were saying about Kevin Mack there a minute ago. And I said, look, I've got a different role for you here that I want you to play. First of all, I need you to be looking after him, as I explained, the maturity and playing with him and the big hitting and the shorter hitting. And secondly, I only want you to play 1 round each day. I want you to play the foursomes the first day, foursomes the second day. I says, I hate foursomes. Everybody thinks I'm good at foursomes because I'm short and I'm straight, but I much prefer to play the 4-ball. I said, I know, but this is where I think your strength is. And if you do these things for me, if you would do this the first 2 days and buy into this and give 100% to looking after Victor and playing the foursomes, that when it comes to the Sunday in the singles, and nobody knows this yet, I'd like you to play number 1 in the singles. So now I'm playing to his ego of building him up as leading the team out in the singles. And I said, here's why I want you to do it. First of all, because I feel you're the ballsiest player we have on the team. And I believe Street Fighter should be playing at number 1, not our best player. Because you put your best player out number 1 and he loses, not alone is it a boost to the 11 guys coming, or a blow to the 11 guys coming behind that our best player has been taken out, but it's also a boost to the Americans. So I don't want to put Rory McIlroy in that position. I want to put you in that position. You're a street fighter. And the second thing is, whoever you play from the American team, historically, they'll do one of 2 things. They'll either put their best player out there, or they'll put the guy who's played the best that week. I can guarantee you both of those players will have played 72 holes in the previous 2 days. You'll only have played 36 and you're going to be fresh. So he usually goes, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense now. And so, it was yin and yang and balancing him up and managing him as an individual and getting him on side. And that's why I go about individual first. So now G-Mac had a real clear, he didn't tell anybody, I didn't tell anybody what the role was, but he knew, me and him knew that he was going to be playing number one in the singles on Sunday, but he had to play this role first, and he was completely bought in. He won all 3 of his games, and he was a star of the Ryder Cup. And so you take away a little bit, but you're trying to. Yeah, that's the key to being a coach and leader, I believe. And obviously Jim Gavin displayed that very much with Dublin, and how, as you say there with O'Gara and Kevin, how the roles that they played. So it's very similar to what I was doing with Graham.
No, absolutely, and like I think that accountability piece of that. Yes, it's a team, but you are accountable for your actions. Like for any team, in order to help the team, you have to be responsible for yourself. And I think that accountability piece is crucial, and it's a key component to the dependability. Then, so you need to depend on me to be able to do what you're asking of me. And unless you have the accountability and the dependability, I don't think you can get that trust that you were trying to build with the guys and connect with them emotionally the way you did with the stuff with the pictures in the dressing room, the colours on match day and all that kind of stuff, because they don't buy into that unless all these other pieces of the jigsaw match together. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. There's got to be continuity. I mean, I was big on that, continuity and simplicity as well. You can't make it too difficult. Going back to the data again, these data guys will just bamboozle you with stats if you let them. So these 2 guys that were working were very much nerds in terms of they love figures, they love stats. I said, I'm not interested in the small correlations, not interested in reams of stats. When they had to present to me, they had to present to me with half a page. And that's all it is. I want half a page and I want 3 or 4 headlines, and that's it. And you've only got 10 minutes to present to me, because I don't want to be sitting here for an hour bamboozled with a little, there's a lot of talk as well too about, the margins, the 1%, marginal gains here, there and everywhere. I was a lot more concerned with the big correlations. Forget about the marginals. You can get lost in the marginals. It's all about the big stuff and making sure that you get the big pieces of the jigsaw in place.
Well, now that you have all these big pieces in place, and I'm going to relate it back to GAA. So you have Dean Rock, who's kicking a free kick to win an All-Ireland final against Mayo, and you have Lee Keegan throwing GPS trackers at him, all these distractions, all these different things. And Dean actually is running a camp at the moment for people around free taking that I think will be really interesting, not just from a skills of actually technique of kicking, but actually that mindset and the thought process that goes into them pressure moments. When you're making a putt in the Ryder Cup, what is going through your head, or what are you telling your team in them key moments to reinforce the positive messages that they, when they're in that moment? What are you saying to them, or what are you thinking yourself?
So just going back again, because you'll see as we're talking here, there's a lot of what I tried to create was continuity and different layers of that continuity. So let's just go back a little bit to my original conversation with Ferguson about the 6 challenges. I said, I want you to write down the 6 challenges, and that's what I'm going to talk on. What I did was I had 6 huge images, kind of 6 foot by 6 foot, massive images, really evocative, that were hung throughout, our either the floor where all our bedrooms were on, or the playing area, the private area of the European team, and that section of the hotel that we were staying in. And I had these massive images that all represented 6 images, all represented the words that Ferguson was going to be talking about, that I was going to reference at each of the meetings. And I had those hung around in important places within the private area of the team, and whether it be the hotel room, the locker room, or the area that we were eating in the hotel. And one of the big challenges for me was they were all equally important. But one of them was, we will be the rock when the storm comes, and that's about resilience, and that's about the fact that we're playing against a really, really strong team, and we're not to take our foot off the gas in any way, because that's what happened in Medina. That's why we lost Medina, because they got complacent. and we were able to come back. We were able to establish some momentum, and off we went to win. But to answer your question, the other one that we had, which was in the breakfast room, as the players were eating breakfast, it was a huge, as I say, a massive image, took over the whole room. And it was a picture of Justin Rose. That you might have seen this picture when he held a putt in Medina on the 17th hole. He held it from about 50 foot across the green against Phil Mickelson with about 15-foot break, and it went in, and he just looked up to heaven like that, and he put his arms out wide like this, and it was like, oh my God, can you believe this has just happened? So what I did was I got that image, and I got an artistic friend of mine to Photoshop it. And what we did was we put smoke out of both of his hands like this, and the smoke rose up behind his head, and then we had thousands of pictures of people behind. Basically, and the idea would be that you have got 50,000 people who are going to be at the Ryder Cup, or 60,000 in the palm of your hands, ready to scream and shout. So when you're standing on the first tee, one of the things I hate, one of my passions was, ex-players are great at this, is to tell you how nervous they are on the first tee and tell you how much they are scared stiff of hitting the first tee shot, and my hand is shaking, I can't even put the ball on the tee, and they're doing it to make themselves sound good, because of course they hit a good shot down the hole, and it's like, I overcome all the nerves. I hate all that. My view to the players was, forget all that. This was about being empowered. Just think, when you tee up and look down that fairway and everybody goes quiet, and there's 25,000 people around the tee and another 25,000 down the fairway and around the back of the green, all waiting for you to hit, and it all goes quiet. Rather than thinking, oh my God, I hope I get this ball airborne, I hope I don't mishit it or shank it, think, no, if I nail it down the middle of this fairway, 60,000 people here are going to scream their lungs out. So rather than thinking, oh my God, I hope I don't miss, or oh my God, on a putt or whatever, just think of the reaction of the crowd when this goes in. So rather than think over it, thinking, oh my God, I'm afraid, you're thinking, I can't wait until, because if I hold this putt, if I hit this shot in, I'm going to have a massive reaction. So you play to the player's ego. And I got this as a player myself. I don't know where it came to me, but playing in the 16th hole with Darren Clark on the last day in 2002 in the Belfry. And I had a putt. We were the last game on the golf course, and I had a putt for birdie from about 7 feet. I was the last guy to putt in the group, and I had a putt to go off square in the match. And it's 10 deep around the green, and we're the last game out that evening on the golf course, and of course all the attention's on here, and of course I'm nervous, and of course my stomach is turning and all that, but for some reason the man above, whoever came and gave me this thought process to say, Paul, if you knock this putt in, this place, because I could feel the tension, you knock this putt in, this place is gonna go ballistic. So standing over the putt, I couldn't wait to hit it. I couldn't wait to hit it and think, man, I got the power of 25,000 people around this green in the palm of my hands. And of course, I nailed the putt, I hold it, and of course, they did go crazy. So, and rolling on to the winning putt then the following day, something similar. So rather than being on the back foot and, oh my God, I'm afraid I don't, you're thinking, I got control of these people. I got control. And that's where I think about, go back to Dean, and I've spoken to some Premiership coaches about this, the pressure of a penalty kick. Rather than thinking, oh my God, I should really score here, you're thinking, wow, I'm going to burst the back of the net here, and I got 60,000 people in the stadium, or 80,000 people in Croke Park. Maybe they're not all going to scream because there's some away fans, but they're going to be screaming, should I make it? And so it's just basically a mindset of being empowered, and playing to the player's ego as well.
Well, yeah, I think that's from talking to different players and Mossy Quinn, the thought process that he has, it's just about recycling them memories of kicking them scores, of when they've had them moments that just come into their head when they're stepping up for them pressure kicks. I want to take this back now to Ballyboden, because we talked a lot about leadership and how to build people's confidence and how to connect with people. You were very lucky enough to be able to talk to the Ballyboden team when they were getting ready for the All-Ireland final, the club final. Andy McEntee invited you down. Was that a big moment? And what did you say to the lads? Because obviously they just went out and performed that day. I thought, if I'm being open and honest with you, I thought they really kind of barely got over the line with some of the results that year. But when they got to Croke Park, they just kind of seemed to let loose and unwind and put in a great performance.
Yeah, listen, there's not a lot I could say, really, to be honest. I mean, it was a fabulous performance. From the very first minute, they went at it. I mean, Donegal goalkeeper, of course, my dad was very proud of that, so they gave another reason to cheer for Ballyboden. But from the very first minute, they just took control of the game. You know, they weren't favourites, and they went at it. It wasn't something I said, to be honest. I mean, listen, I've got 5 minutes to wish them good luck, and that's all it was, to be honest. There was no great words of urgency. I live down the road, and they said, "Look, would you go up and just wish the lads good luck as they get in the bus?" And that's pretty much what it was. And they obviously knew my connection with playing with Ballyboden. Michael Darrell was there too, and yeah, you know, it's again, it's a continuity, you know. And I always felt there's an affinity, you know. And I don't know if the GA players feel it. I'm sure they do, but I certainly feel it in golf. I mean, you take somebody that I've played, who has played Ryder Cup for Europe. I immediately have an affinity with them because, you know, I was that soldier as well. And, you know, when you meet somebody who maybe been before you, or even somebody who's after you, you know, there is that connection, there is that bond, that you're following in their footsteps and of representing the team. And I guess that was the only connection, really, you know, as an ex-Ballyboden hurler and footballer. That was it, and just wishing them good luck. And there was no great words of wisdom. It was a tremendous performance by them. It really was. I was so happy for Andy.
Yeah, no, it was a great performance. Speaking of a Vincent's man, now we have them in the club championship, so I hope you don't go near them now again. I hope that's your goal. You've done your role. You don't need to go back. But I actually just want to talk about your dad and your connection with Donegal, because I think we owe your dad a massive, massive thank you for getting rid of Jim McGuinness. He was it him that introduced Jim to Dermot Desmond?
Yeah, it was him. Yeah, it was him. The two of them. Basically, I was playing in Portrush in the Irish Open. I don't know when it was, 5-6 years ago, and Jim had been in Dad's ear. They're from the same part of Donegal, and I obviously had known Jim for the two. I learned a lot from Jim, I have to say. Very, very smart, very clever, and we certainly haven't heard the end of Jim McGuinness. There's a lot more to come from him. He's, yeah, you know, and he had this idea. He didn't say it to me, but he had this idea that he shared with Dad about, you know what, I'm thinking about maybe going into the soccer business and blah, blah, blah. So basically Dad says, well, why don't you make your way to Portrush? He'll be playing in the Pro-Am. I wasn't playing with him. I wasn't playing with Dermot. So anyway, the two of them took off and they hunted down Dermot. And Dermot had known about Jim because I had mentioned to him, you know, every time we mock, Dermot is a big fan of the GAA and a big fan of Dublin. He's helped in a lot of ways over the years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, he was very familiar with Jim, and of course he was delighted to meet him, and the two of them had a coffee and a chat, and one thing led to another, and Jim was brought over to Celtic, and kind of off he went. So yeah, it was Dad's instigation, that introduction to Dermot.
And then Dublin went on and won 5 in a row.
Yeah, I know. I'm not finished yet either.
No, absolutely. Well, look, Paul, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your stories. Like as I said, I've gone to a few of your talks. I've gone through lots of articles of interviews you've done. I will check out that YouTube of the London Business School with yourself and Alex Ferguson.
Sure.
And you probably will feature in a lot of my college assignments from here on in. So, look, I appreciate you giving your time. Really enjoyed it. I hope people get a lot out of this. I'm sure they will. And look, thanks again.
You're welcome. All the best.